Welcome to the Infertility Feelings Podcast. I am Jessie Brown.
And I am Doug Brown.
Yep, that's your name. We are so excited for this week's guest. It is Carrie from Blooming with Care, and she has an amazing story.
She has one of the most crazy stories I think I've ever heard. And
Yeah.
I was blown away by who she is and man, what she even taught us in this conversation. It was wonderful.
Yes, I learned so many things, and she just is such a passionate lady, and I'm so excited, and I want to be your best friend.
When you do a podcast with someone, you kind of become their best
Yeah,
friend?
you do for an hour.
One of the things that we were really excited about as a couple and as running Uniquely Knitted was we've met so many amazing people online and we get to know them and they're awesome and you kind of get snapshots of their lives. But doing this podcast was an opportunity for us to really have longer conversations with people and get to know more of their story and more of kind of like what inspires them and what drives them to do what they're doing. Because not everybody shares their story online.
No, it's very rare for somebody even to share a story. And I knew a little bit about her story, but to hear the whole entire thing in detail is just really, really, really powerful. This is perfect for anyone who is struggling with infertility or wants to know what it feels like to struggle with infertility and to have such an up and down story. It's really beautiful. I'm excited. So
yeah. Without further ado,
here is Carrie from Blooming with Care.
Hi!
We're so excited you're here. Yes, we're so excited you're here. Okay, first.
where are you from? What's
that.
going on in your day?
I'm from Chico, California.
Ooh.
My amazing, fabulous brother was just here. I just drove him an hour and a half south to Sacramento to fly on the airplane.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a lot of surprised fun because he kind of surprised us. And so it was a lot of like, oh, we're going to have fun. But today's his birthday. So it was like a
how
whole
fun.
week of birthday celebrating. It was such an unexpected treat.
Oh, so you didn't know he was coming?
No, I mean, he told us 24 hours before he was coming.
Oh, that's fun.
Very him. It's
Surprise
very his
visit.
style.
Surprise.
I love a good surprise visit. It's hard to surprise anyone now because you can hardly travel. So it's good that he could even do that.
I know. That's awesome.
He was like, can you pick me up from the airport? I was like, I'll figure it out. Absolutely.
So in Chico, if you're in Chico, that means you're surrounded by fire, right?
Absolutely.
Are you okay?
Yes. We are okay. A lot of our surrounding towns are not okay. We had the campfire in 2 years ago in 2018, and that really devastated the town next to us. And so the fact that they're having to evacuate again is not feeling very good. But I was just having this discussion with my husband this morning as he was leaving for work because he works in Paradise. And I said, do we need to be worried? And he was like, we live in a grassland area. It's, Paradise is surrounded by trees. It's a little more flammable. I'm like, okay. Even though when I drove down to take my brother to the airport, I was like, well, I'm taking the dogs just to make sure that we're all together.
Yes, good.
Like pack mentality the whole time.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect.
It's hard. I think people outside of California just think that the entire West Coast is on. I mean, it is kind of on fire, but it's crazy.
Sure.
It's the mountains, but it's scary.
I get all my Midwest family texting me, are you okay? I'm like, yes, we're okay. You know what I mean? Because it just seems, it's like when an earthquake happens in like somewhere really far, they're like, are you okay?
Right. Well, I think people forget like how big California is. Like if I go to the East Coast, you can like drive through like 12 states or something. And we're still in what would be California.
Right. Totally.
And we could like from like Georgia to New York would be from us driving to you. That's like how big California is.
Yes.
So true.
But I love it here. I absolutely love California.
Yes.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about your story and then we're going to talk about how you were feeling. So first we want to hear, where did it all start? Like you and your husband sat down one day, let's try to have a baby, or what was that?
So we got married in 2014 and we knew we wanted to start trying to have a baby immediately. And we tried right away. It was fun at first until it wasn't.
Yeah.
So true.
Everyone's like, oh, you're having sex with your husband. And you're like, yeah, but when you want an outcome, it changes so much.
Right.
So true.
So we tried naturally for 4 years. And within that 4 years, I became depressed. I really turned to alcohol to kind of hide a lot of the feelings. A lot of, if not most of my friends were getting pregnant. And that was extremely, extremely difficult to deal with. In fact, I think that was probably the hardest part for me was letting go of the life that I thought I was going to live and watching everybody else around me live it. And I had to work through in a lot of therapy just to be able to say that sentence of I'm not living the life I thought, but that doesn't mean it's worse or better.
Right.
I've done a lot of work with like acceptance of where we are, but during that early stages, I had none of that. And I didn't know anybody dealing with infertility. So I felt very alone. We told people we were trying, but we never told people that I was crying on the bathroom floor all the time, or that, you know, we were trying all the herbs and acupuncture. And it was more of like, well, of course this is going to happen because this is happening for everybody else. So around year 4, I had finally told my gynecologist that we had been trying for so long, and she was like, what are you doing?
Right.
You need to be at a fertility clinic. And it was like, but that was so scary for me, because then I thought, well, now we have to admit that there's a problem. And I don't like to
Can we pause right there? That is such a big deal for people. Like they don't want to go get checked. And sometimes I really encourage, because I'm like, it could be one little thing.
And it could be something so simple.
It
Ours
could not be.
But you never know. And that's the thing. You just never know. And I remember when we met with the fertility clinic and we found out that my husband had a low sperm count, and we discussed our options, and my husband did a spreadsheet. He loves Excel. And
I love it.
Came to the doctor with a spreadsheet and was like, well, if we do this many times, this should be the outcome. And they were like, we love that you are so excited about having a baby that you made a spreadsheet out of it. But each separate column is its own time, because every single time you do it, there's different factors.
So true.
And it was like, oh, so we can't compare ourselves to other people because we're unique, as everyone is unique in this. And that, I hadn't even thought about that. So then we became great candidates for IVF.
Okay.
We started right away. We had our egg retrieval. We did our first transfer. I became pregnant. And then around week 8, I lost the baby. I had a miscarriage. Didn't deal with it right away. Was definitely like, it's fine. We have something to do. I felt like I was very positive. We have a next step. We have a plan.
Right. How many eggs did you have at that point?
We had 4.
4. Okay.
And we didn't do any testing. We were kind of advised not to.
Yeah, neither did we. We didn't do any testing either.
You said you feel like you had a plan. What do you mean? You had after you
we'll just do the next.
Just do it again. Okay.
Keep going.
Right over again.
Wow, okay.
Keep going. Yeah. And I remember it was about 2 weeks after my miscarriage, and I lost it. I absolutely lost it. And I felt like I wasn't really acknowledging the grief that I had. And I remember crying to my principal. I was a teacher at the time. It was not the first time I cried to him. He heard me cry a lot, but this time he was like, maybe you need some time off. And
that's amazing.
Teacher,
that's amazing that he even offered that. That's huge.
Yeah, no, he still is amazing, but he was very supportive throughout all of that. And the fact that I also want to point on this, I started sharing our story with him, and he had told us that he was struggling. And
oh my gosh.
Oh my word.
And it just opened up this whole new connection between us, to where it was like, oh my gosh, okay, so you kind of understand. They have children, but they were like, we had some issues. We know what it feels like. We know where the clinic is that you're going to.
Wow. Oh my
Isn't that amazing? See, I feel like, yes, when you share, sometimes, yes, you're going to get the comments, the horrible comments, but then sometimes it's amazing what happens.
Yeah.
Of like, I've had so many people go, oh yeah, I struggled. Oh, back in the day, there's so,
and that
so
was
amazing.
A big part for me that really pushed me to continue to share, because so many people started coming out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to hold on to all of this. And how do you feel? How do you deal with that? Because I had known for the past 4 years, I was not dealing with it very well.
How do you feel?
Not to say,
how do you feel like, at that point you're starting to tell more people? Do you feel like, did you ever feel like you were living kind of 2 separate realities? Like one reality over here, you were really struggling. One reality over here, you were, did they ever meet to where you were fully sharing your full reality?
I felt like when they started to meet, when I started to be really honest with how sad I was, how depressed I was, how, our marriage was strong, but our sex life wasn't good. Like when I started to share that, I got so much greatness that came out of it, of people really connecting with me that honestly I never knew. Even like some like elderly women that I were friends with were like, yeah, that happened to me too, 60
Yeah.
years ago.
Yes, I've had that too.
Yeah. How did that feel to
and I-
have people validate you like that?
Oh, I mean, that is literally the word validating me is why I became a coach.
Yes.
Because I would want to help me when I was, 6 years ago, being like, hey, all these feelings that feel really shameful, they're super valid and they're normal. And
Yes.
it's actually that's how humans work, but we're not really taught to express them or be approached in a positive way. Like I was so jealous, and that's not a good emotion as we call it, but it's still a human emotion that we have to feel. And so I started to like kind of really gravitate towards a lot of people's feeling experiences but on the flip side of that came with a lot of advice from a lot of people, because most of those people had children, and they're like, oh well, you have to do this, you have to do that. And it was like, and I, at first I was like, I'm taking this all down and I'm taking it all in, and then it was like, okay, so I've tried all that and it's still not working. And then I felt bad because it still wasn't working. But so we were still at the clinic. We were still working towards that. And then we had our second transfer, and that's when I became pregnant with Clementine. And
which I love that name, by the way. Oh my gosh.
That was my husband picked that name.
That is the cutest name.
That's it.
Cutest name.
And I was pregnant with her for 8 months, and I developed a rare liver pregnancy disease called cholestasis of pregnancy. And it usually is pretty manageable. It's about 2 to 3% chance that you will lose your child. We happen to be part of that percentage. I think we caught it pretty late, like too late in the game. And
was there
we
symptoms?
lost her in May. Yeah, there were tons of signals. So you become extremely itchy. That's like the main thing, is you're itchy like all over.
Wow.
And because I'm not super sure of the actual like medical terms, but I know that my liver basically wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing, and bile had gotten into my blood, and that's what made me itchy. And it crossed the barrier over to Clementine. And yeah, that was a life changer for us. It was really, it changed who we are. It's still changing us. It will forever change us.
Can you define that time? What your feelings were? What was the feeling?
I'd say probably for the first, like when I found out, when we went to the hospital, because like one night I was like, I don't feel her normal kicks. Let's go in. I just thought it was going to be a normal situation. And then they all came in. I remember all the nurses came in at the same time, and they formed like a rainbow around us. And I was like, oh my God, like, why is everyone in here?
Yeah.
So at that point, you didn't know?
Nope, we didn't know. We had a feeling because they had been searching for the heartbeat, but they couldn't find it. But no one had told us yet. So we were like, maybe everything's okay. And then the head nurse had said, there's no heartbeat. And we just, we cried. They cried. We cried together. It was this. And then I probably cried for maybe 30 minutes, and I felt a switch in me of like, okay, I need to handle this. Like, how do I deal with this? I think I got very protective of my husband because he's not super emotional, but he's aware of his emotions. But I just wanted to make sure he was okay. And I started calling family members. My mom was at our house, and I wanted to make sure my mom wasn't okay. So I started calling my mom. I think I tried to control things that I could control, because I had lost so much control that I needed to grasp onto anything that I could.
That makes sense.
Looking back, that was very helpful for me, instead of like just drowning, especially because they put me on a lot of drugs, and I came like in and out of aware of what was happening, but very thankful for those drugs. But it was a blurry time. And then I remember, I was just telling my brother this recently. I remember lying in the bed saying, we need to find something that we're grateful for. And my husband was like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to find anything I'm grateful for in this moment. And I was like, I've done all the work. I have all the tools. All the books say we have to be grateful.
I read this.
And I remember my husband saying something like, he said, I'm glad that you're okay. Because it came out later that my husband had feared that I was going to die, which that never entered my brain.
Right.
Oh.
Because I was like, I'm fine. But he was like, I thought maybe I was going to lose you, which I was like, oh my God, are you serious? But
oh my gosh,
there's
that's
bile.
intense.
If there's like bile in your blood, that's not good.
It's not good. Exactly. Right. And so
can I ask you a really personal question? Did you give birth to Clementine?
I did. Yes. I delivered her. Yes,
what was like for someone that has had that, what was that experience like?
It was way less scary than I expected.
Interesting.
I'll have to say. Like I mean, I was very high on drugs. I will continue to say that. Like I had all the drugs, and
I feel like they do that. They're like, let's give her some stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Some happy juice.
And, I remember when she came out, because we had such a wonderful staff, and they were like before I delivered, they're like, do you want to hold your baby? Yeah. Are you going to name your baby? And I was like, I said, I don't know how to answer any of these questions because I didn't. I didn't know. How could you make those decisions right there that quickly, you know? And I am thankful because they kept pressing the questions. Okay. Which at the time I was like, stop asking me. But it was the right thing for me to keep coming back and consider, like, what do I want to do? How do I want to handle this? And again, we still didn't know. But when we delivered her, because we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, I had always had dreams that it was a girl, but we had decided to wait. And, you know, they say it's a girl, which is like, you know, and it's very quiet in the room. And my midwife just like put her in my arms. Like she didn't even give me a choice. And the second she was in my arms, I'm going to cry. The second she was in my arms, like, everything felt right in the world. Like she was perfect. She was beautiful. She was very tall. Oh, I'm pretty tall. And they were like, she's so long. And my husband was like, my wife is long.
Oh my gosh, I'm crying.
But it was, and I remember holding her, and it wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. I don't know what I pictured, but she was absolutely perfect. She had my husband's nose, and I have a very prominent family nose. So that was like a big deal that the nose did not pass on.
Oh my gosh.
My gosh.
We held her for a long time. You know, there was one nurse there that really was amazing, and she kept saying, we're going to leave her in here. And I was like, I don't know if I want her to be in here. And they said, we're going to leave her with you, which I am so thankful for, because we got to be with her.
Yes.
Right.
That's so amazing that nurses, it's like, they just know. They know. They're like, no, you do. That's amazing.
My husband kind of was of the mindset of like, no, let's just get her out of the room and, you know, kind of bury it. Like, let's get it out. But we needed to have those moments with her, because that's how we know her. That's how we know. And then the nurse said, you know, would you like me to take pictures? And I was like, I don't know. Yeah. And the nurse said, I'm just going to take pictures. And if you don't want them, I will hold them for a year and you can come back.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And literally we left the hospital and I went home and I said, Mom, go back and get the picture.
Yes.
I need the picture.
Yes. Smart woman.
How much do you feel like those moments right after delivery and just being there with her, what part did they play in your process of healing and processing all of that, you know? And do you feel like it would have been different if you didn't have them?
I do. I absolutely do, because we have those moments to hold on to and to remember. And, you know, like even naming, a lot of people don't name their child, but I don't know what week it is after, but you have to fill out a death report. So you have to put some name.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Oh,
I didn't know that either.
I didn't know that.
And we decided to give her the name that we had picked, which we had mixed feelings about, because we're like, well, we really like this name. Do we give it to another child that lives?
Right.
But because my husband was kind of like, do we still do this? And I was like, this is Clementine. Like, this is her.
Right.
And because of that, we have something to hold on to and go back to and talk about. And, you know, like I have Clementines in my office. I have a tattoo of Clementine. Like, it's
I love that.
It's amazing.
It's still such a huge part of us. And I love that we really, you know, we talk to her every day still. We still try to keep her in our life, to acknowledge that it happened and, you know, accept it and be able to really hold on to those feelings. And I feel like, I mean, I don't know, because they didn't just take her out of our room, but I feel like those those memories are what we have of her face to face. Like I
Right.
recently had a dream with her in it, and
Mm-hmm.
I was very nervous for this because I knew this was going to happen. And she
Yeah.
was kind of like a doll, like she was very limp, but it felt very good. Like I felt the love and the warmth in the dream. When I woke up and I was talking about it with my husband, he was like, well, that's the only way that we know her. We don't know
Right.
her as like a rambunctious
So
baby.
true.
And I was like, you're right.
Right.
Wow.
Gosh, it's so
That story.
that's a lot to take in. Gosh.
I know.
But you I feel like you've taught me a lot, even just
Yeah.
because we talk a lot about accepting your reality when you're going through infertility or when you're struggling to grow your family, right? That it's difficult to accept your reality. It's difficult to accept that things aren't turning out the way you want. I don't know if there's a better, hard but difficult but inspiring picture of you like holding Clementine in your hands than saying like, this is our reality. It's
Painful.
at one point incredibly painful but beautiful but somber, but
Absolutely.
it's
And
like
we
this
say
giant
that a
mix of
lot.
things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like it was so beautiful, but it's so like gut wrenching at the
Yeah.
same time.
Right.
And when we after we lost Clementine, I got us to like a grief counselor
Oh, that's
because I
good.
was like, I don't know what to do. You know,
Right.
I coach people, but I don't coach people through this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I found someone online, and it was only like 3 days later, and we went. And I actually didn't leave the house for a month except to go see the grief counselor.
Wow,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
And
Which makes sense.
she was like, you guys are, you know, what did she say? Oh yeah, did you ever think about like not suing them, but do you blame anybody? That's what I said. Do you blame anybody? And we had never really talked about it, but we both looked at them and we said, no, like this isn't
Right.
anybody's fault. And we were approached somebody had asked us like, are you interested in suing? And we said,
wow.
absolutely not.
Right.
And my husband's response was, even if we were to get a pile of money, that's not going to bring our daughter back. So I'm not interested in anything to do with that.
Right.
So true.
And it's the acceptance part of like,
Yeah.
we're
Yes.
obviously this is not the reality that we want, but it's where we're at, and we can grow from here. And we're going to sit in the muck and the darkness and the mud.
Yeah.
We're going to be okay. And I knew that when it was happening. I was like, this is awful, but I know I'm going to be okay.
Right.
Gosh. Whew. So in that time of that month that you didn't leave the house, what would be a typical day that you would experience? Like what emotions would you feel in that time?
So it was very quiet for a lots of tears. My mother-in-law and my husband stayed with me the whole time.
That's amazing to have awesome community like that.
Oh my God, I felt very lucky I didn't want to be alone. Like my husband had to go to work for like an hour to go pick up something from the office. Actually, he was like, I'm going to go back to work. And he went in and was like, I can't be here. Like, he's a doer. So he wanted to like get back into the way of things. And he immediately came home when I was like, I was alone. I didn't like it. So that was hard. But once I said I didn't want to be alone, I had people there. And I also, since we had shared our story so much, we had a huge community of support and love that wanted to show up. And so I shared on social media and I said, if you'd like to stop by, the door might be open. It might not be.
Wow.
And I kept it open because like I said, if it's closed, I don't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
But I liked having people around me and asking questions and showing up. And I got to share Clementine's life with her and her birth story.
Yes.
And I really appreciate that. I know that not everybody wants to have everybody come over, but it was something that made me feel better. And honestly, it helped me like get out of bed, be like, okay, well, somebody might show up. So I'm at least, I might not shower, but I'm going to
put my pants on
and cry. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Right. I had a girlfriend who lost her older brother, and so many of I was just so used to being like, how are you doing? And asking her all the time how she was doing. And all my friends would be like, you ask her all the time. Like, you know what I mean? And they would, and I'll never forget her telling my other friends, I want to talk about it. That's how I'm keeping his memory alive. Yeah. But people think when someone dies, it's like, oh, tiptoe, like don't bring up the elephant in the room. And if anything, I have experienced the opposite of like their face lights up when you ask about them because you're like, oh, I get to talk about him and someone didn't forget, you know?
Because it's not like you're not thinking about it. You're
always
thinking about it.
That's what she said. Yeah.
Like a meme or something towards like, don't don't be afraid to bring up their name because you think that person's not thinking about them. They're always thinking about them.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's like anything anything tragic that happens in your life, even you lose a job, anything, relationship issues, when someone brings it up, it's like, oh gosh, finally, I've been thinking about this all day. Here's my opportunity to like let it out,
Right. For me, it makes me feel a little bit lighter. Like I'm almost like sharing the weight of it, even though I don't want to say it's as heavy as it is, because I really am thankful for this experience. Obviously, I want her in my life, but she's in my life just in a different way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I completely changed my life when we lost her. Like it was very clear of like who I wanted in my life. I quit my teaching job because I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like this isn't worth my time. Life is short. And I really started to prioritize what I wanted for myself.
Yeah.
How did you do that? Like, I feel like people go into the despair. You know what I mean? Like that would be, and this that was there too.
I did. I remember one of my girlfriends was like, let's just sit around and eat cookies and get fat. And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm in.
Sounds like a great Friday night to me.
I think a big part of it for me too was that I decided to stay sober for about 2 months after we lost Clementine.
That's amazing.
Not like, I don't know. And it was funny because I remember even going in the doctor's office and they're like, because I have liver issues, so like I don't drink a ton, but they're like, you can drink every now and then. I was like, I'm not sober now, but they were like, if you want to partake, like this is in a healthy way, things can come up. And I was like, I needed this clarity that I didn't have before. And I needed to like feel everything and not hide it. And I think a big part of me really allowing myself to be sad and scared and disappointed opened up a lot of other areas for me to feel strong and empowered, and almost this like balance of, okay, well, I can feel, because I'm feeling these not so happy emotions, I get more of the happy emotions.
Yeah.
And we tried a lot of like rituals and like therapies, and I had the tools to where it was like, okay, let's use them. And I also come from a very long line of extremely strong women. And I think that has always been like I didn't have a choice. Like, it was like, well, of course you're strong. You're a Lawston, which is my maiden name. Like, you're a Lawston woman. You're strong. And it was like, okay, well, and when you are told that your whole life, you believe it,
Right.
Yeah.
But I think some people think strong, like, oh, you're strong. You don't feel anything. You get, and I'm not saying that that's what your family was doing. I'm just saying.
No.
Yeah.
Even though maybe my past family might have done that, I am very much like, I feel everything.
Yeah. It reminds me of one of the therapists that we work with says that grief is the pain that heals all other pains. And I think it's just so true that, grief is a pain and it hurts, but through hurting in that way, you heal all these other pains. And it sounds like that's exactly what you were doing. You were diving into the grief, which was painful, but by doing that, happiness, started to come out, joy started to come out because you were dealing with that pain.
Yeah. And I had never dealt with that much pain, let alone that kind of grief prior. So I had never experienced it, but it really kind of like, somebody the other day was like, it's like you had a breakthrough. And I was like, I feel like it was more of a breakdown, but I guess it was a breakthrough.
Ooh, there's another post idea too. That's good.
I'm breaking down, not through.
Yeah, I'm breaking down, not
but
through.
I see where you're coming from, but I didn't feel like there was one moment where there was like this epiphany of, oh, here it goes. It was like bit by bit, I was able to go outside and do things that were still like a normal life-ish. But I remember our grief counselor saying, you're going to go out into the world and you're going to be people are going to be living their everyday lives, and you're going to think, how come you don't know that my daughter died? Like, it's this, and she's like, and you're going to have to get really comfortable with that feeling. And that was like, well, that doesn't sound comfortable. Fun. And she's like, it's not, but you'll do it.
Right. What would be your advice to someone that is in that exact situation?
I would really recommend reaching out to a therapist hugely. I mean, I'm a big therapist lover anyways. I've gone off and on to therapy since I was in 5th grade. It's completely changed my life. And honestly, my husband and I almost when we were there, we left our therapist session going, because she said, you guys are going to be fine. Like, you know, we were laughing in the session.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she said, if it's only been a few days and you're still like laughing with each other, said you're going to be fine. And we walked out thinking, oh my God, a certified person said we're going to be okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're going to be okay.
We're going to
Can
be
you
okay.
sign that? And I need your
Can I put that a
signature?
tattoo on my forehead? I'm going to be okay.
I'm okay. Like
Yeah.
she said.
Right.
And so for me, again, everyone deals with it differently, but finding ways to honor that pain or that person that that you miss. Like and the grief counselor had told us, you know, I want you to say good night, Clementine, every day.
Oh,
And we do that still to this day. And it's like it's not sad.
right.
It's not this like, oh gosh. I mean, sometimes it's sad, but for the majority of the time, it's like, we're just still checking in with you and letting you know that we still love you.
That's amazing.
Which means that we love ourselves.
Yes.
And finding, I think, like little ways like that to keep, I don't want to say keep the pain alive, but to keep like the memories and that part of you and honoring that part of who you are, because grief literally changes you. So, you know, we have a lot of like we have a Clementine tree outside, and whenever we take like a family picture, we're like, oh, well, we have to go by the tree. And
I love that.
I do a lot of like burning ceremonies, like with full moons and stuff, to where like I'll write stuff down and just burn it. And there's something that feels so good about seeing it disintegrate in front of your eyes. Where like, it's not here anymore. I might write the same things down next time, but it feels like a release.
Right.
That's amazing.
In so many ways, you're keeping her a part of your reality, you know, because saying good night to her, having, you know, these mementos and tokens, it's like she's there. She's,
because
you know,
she is your reality.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, exactly.
That's
it's like
reality.
She's part of your reality no matter what. But for all of us, if we just, you know, take things out of our life, we start to lose, you know, our acknowledgement of them. And it sounds like you're doing so many good ways to do that.
Take them out, a lot of times they come back and like they show up in weird ways that where you're like, oh, I don't know how to handle this. They're here. I haven't felt this way for a while.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what kind of what trauma can do, right? Is like if you've been, the situation you went through is a traumatic situation. But if we kind of just move it away, all of a sudden you go to the grocery store and there's
a Clementine.
Yeah, a Clementine. You know, you see something like that, and it's like all of a sudden you are back in that.
And it's funny that you say grocery store, because the grocery store is one of my biggest triggers. Still, to this day.
Interesting.
There's a grocery store like a block away from us. They saw me pregnant. I was very scared to go back.
Yeah.
You know, I went there 3 times a day when I'm like, I'm making cookies and I forgot something. And so like they would know me.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, when I go to the grocery store, a lot of times I'll cry. And I'm okay with that now. In the beginning, it was like, oh gosh, like I'm crying in public. But now I'm the person that cries in public every now and then. And it happens. Okay. Yeah. And sometimes people like, are you okay? And most of the times I'm like, I'm fine. Sometimes I'll say, oh, my daughter died, and I'll share it. That's rare, but I get to choose where I want to like let those people in. Cause you know, you can get into a long conversation with a stranger about that. I don't normally want to do that.
Right.
But I do know that like, if I'm having a hard day and my husband like asks me to go to the store, he's like, are you going to be okay? It's like, yeah, I'll be fine. I might cry, but I'll be fine. Like, it's fine.
Right.
And just because you cried, that's okay. That, you know,
it doesn't.
You know,
Oh, what was my question? Dang it, I forgot.
So to take us forward in the story a little bit, is there...
Wait,
no,
can I ask my
comes?
question?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I asked my question. So I was like, wait, lost it. I need my coffee. How did you combat comments that weren't helpful in that time? Or did you feel like you got a lot of them? That I feel like is something that people with infertility and in this kind of part of their story.
And especially miscarriage.
Really
it's like,
hard.
Especially with miscarriage at such a late stage, it's everyone knows in a way because it was visible.
Yes.
So you're going to get comments.
Yeah. How did you deal with that?
So I feel like I really had built up a tolerance from my 6 years previous of try this, try that. And I had to really know that I think it comes from love for the like, you know, it comes out of love and people want to help you and it makes them uncomfortable when you're like, this is my reality. And I got much more comfortable with saying like, oh, well, you know, I actually had a miscarriage and a stillborn. So like, I do want kids, but I'm struggling. And I became very comfortable with letting other people be uncomfortable, because I think I used to want to like make sure they're okay with the situation.
Right.
And, you know, like we just saw some friends that I hadn't seen for 20 years this weekend, and they're like, "Oh, are you going to have kids?" And like everybody looked at me and it was like, well,
you're
how much time do you have?
Yeah. My brother was like, "Oh gosh." I'm like, "It's fine. I won't make a scene." But
Right.
I will be honest. And I'm, you know, coming from a space where I was very depressed and turned to alcohol in the early years of infertility, that did not feel good. And I know I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
And to do that, my personal journey was to tell the truth and be more honest with people, which, as we know, makes people uncomfortable, but it's not our job to make them feel uncomfortable. And once I made that shift of like, you get to feel however you want to feel about this. That has nothing to do with me, actually.
Right.
That's you. I mean, it took me a long time to get there.
Yep.
I became much more comfortable with telling people the truth. Like there was somebody we hadn't seen probably for about 8 years that came into our lives recently. She didn't know any of our story. We told her our story, and she was like, "Well, you know, you're going to keep trying, right?" And it was like, "We are, but we do have boundaries. Like we can't, we know that we're not going to try forever, because we can't live in this space forever.
Right.
We've set up boundaries. Sometimes those boundaries change, but we acknowledge and communicate those boundaries."
Right.
And I was being very real with her, and she kept saying, "Well, you don't sound very optimistic." And it was like, I don't have to be optimistic.
Yeah, you're like, I am not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I've actually been like, you know, we've been trying for so long, and there's been no's that it weighs you down, and that's okay.
Right.
Or also with the comment of, "Well, I know you're going to be a mother." And it's like, no, you don't.
Yeah, no, you don't
know that.
Yep. We still have people.
And I don't know that either. And that's okay. It's uncomfortable to know that it's okay.
Right.
But I think people want to like live in this hopeful world. And it's like, actually, and I don't have to be like rude about it. You know, it can be like, even though sometimes I will be honest. Sometimes I'm like, nope, I'm not.
That's
here
not
to
helpful.
Make you,
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Just depends on what mood I'm in.
Yes.
Because I'm the same.
Exactly. I have built enough confidence in myself, knowing that I'm accepted to where I'm at, and I can share that with somebody else, and how they react is their response, not mine.
Amen.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm a hairdresser. I had to really learn that skill. Really bad.
Very quickly.
It's like it's not like a deflection, like throwing it back on them. It's just not. I just learned, I don't know if I should say thick skin or something, but it was like a thing of like, you're going to tell me to relax, and I'm just going to throw it right back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and okay, you know what I mean? And not have it. And I think because I had so many awesome people in my life that I was truly authentic with, that those comments just became less and less painful. Because
and they understand it, and they're like, oh, and they might need to hear it 9, 12 times.
Right.
Yeah.
But they still keep showing up, because I lost a lot of friends during infertility that were like, I can't handle you like saying that you don't know if you're going to be a mom anymore. And it was like, but I don't know if I'm going to be a mom. So
I feel like a lot of those comments and a lot of those things that people say come out of their uncomfortability with you not getting what you want. Like they have a vision of you that they want you to be happy,
so funny.
And they want you to have, kids or whatever. They are uncomfortable with you not being happy and having everything going great, because it messes up their reality,
Yes, exactly. Because we're supposed to live this like everyone, especially I feel like on social media, it's like we're happy and everything's good. Look at these beautiful pictures, and don't get me wrong, I love that, but I also acknowledge that sometimes life is really difficult, and no, you don't know if I'm going to be a mother, and I don't know that.
Right.
Right. And I feel like where Doug and I at, it's almost, I don't know if insult is if that's too strong of a word, but it's almost like when still people tell us like, still thinking about you guys getting a baby. And I'm like, okay, we really don't have exactly. But it's like, we really don't have the numbers for that. So stop. You know what I mean? But it's almost like, what would be a better word than insult? Not an insult. It's like it almost like.
Dig at yourself of like,
yeah.
People are like, you're still not the best that you could be.
Right.
Like, I'm pretty good right now. Like,
Right.
I'm pretty good right now. You're pretty good right now. Let's just be cool with where we're at, which again, I feel like comes back to that acceptance parts of like, this is where we're at.
Yes.
Yes, we're still trying to have a family, which I feel like, especially after losing Clementine, a lot of people are like, well, what are you going to do?
Right.
Like, honestly, we go back and forth with knowing, but
we're just going to sit in this for a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what we did. Actually, right after we lost her, we were like, okay, I think we still want to try, but we weren't really ready to like dip our toes into it yet. It was like, this is going to be on the back burner. And then I think, so we lost her in May, and it was around like September, October. I said, I think I'm ready to start talking about it. I think I want to look towards adoption. And my husband said, we still have 2 embryos left. I would like to pursue that somehow.
Yeah.
And my amazing husband doesn't ask for much. And so when I felt like he like really said, I really want to try this, it was like, let's try it then, because he does so many good things. And I was just like, I want to explore a different avenue, because honestly, when the doctor said, you probably shouldn't be pregnant anymore, it was a huge relief for me, because I felt like, okay, I don't have to be in this position again. Like, I don't have to be in the hospital bed, not taking my baby home. And that made me feel honestly hopeful, because it was almost like, okay, well, I can eliminate another thing. I can go do something else.
Right. So what was that process like? You have 2 embryos.
So we had 2 embryos. And when my husband was like, I would like to pursue surrogacy. And it was like, okay, well, what does that look like? And surrogacy, as many parts of infertility, is different for everyone.
Right.
So I started just kind of talking about it with just some friends, and we had 3 people volunteer.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
amazing.
Wow.
And we had a boundary. Like, I think I said we started talking about it like around October, September or something. And I was like, if we don't find anybody by December, we're moving forward. I love boundaries. I love boundaries.
Oh, love it. I knew I liked you.
And
freedom through boundaries. I like it.
Exactly. And 3 people volunteered, and it was like, whoa, I didn't even know how to handle that, because it was like, I don't know, like, which path do I do? So we started with the person that was closest to us. We still worked with our clinic. She was disqualified because of her age. She was like, I think she was like 42, but the clinic was like, we can't do this. But other clinics would. And that's to say, like, every story is different, but this was our clinic. And I said, if you're comfortable, we're going to still explore. And she was like, absolutely, please keep me in the loop. She's still in our loop.
Okay.
And then our midwife actually offered, who delivered Clementine.
Oh my God.
Oh my word.
I know, it was, there was a lot of weird mixed emotions with that, but it was an amazing situation. She ended up not being able to do it.
Okay.
And then a friend that I had growing up that I hadn't seen in about 20 years contacted me and was like, hey, I've been following your story online. I'm interested. And it was like, wow, really? And that's who we're currently working with now.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And having her in my life has brought this like kid-like fun in my life again, because we were friends when we were kids. And we hadn't seen each other in like 20 years. And the first time I saw her, she was getting pregnant with my baby. And it was like, hey,
wow.
Kind of weird.
That is just a mind trip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember this when we were kids? Oh, and you have my kid? Oh, that's weird.
Okay, I have to ask you, because I've always wondered this. What does it feel like to go use a surrogate? Like what for me, what does it feel like someone is carrying this embryo for you? What does that feel like? You said you were there in the moment when it was happening. What are those emotions like?
It was very weird, and I was so nervous, but
do they do it like IVF? They put in the egg
it's
like
just
that.
like IVF. Yeah. It's just like IVF. It's just not me.
Basically. Right. Okay.
And it was surreal, as my husband continues to this day saying, I feel like this is somebody else's story, because like we're not doing meds, we're not taking all of like the doctor appointments. And
oh, I see. Yeah.
I go to most of them. My husband still hasn't met her, because our clinic is 2 hours away, and she's 3 hours past that. So it's still lovely, but it feels out of body, kind of out of sight, out of mind. It doesn't feel real. Like when I was there, when she was getting implanted, it was like, can I hold your hand? Like,
yeah.
Like, how do we do this?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I don't really know what to do here.
Right.
I'm usually the one on the table. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know about your clinic, but ours like played classical music, and it was really dark, and it was very like, oh, okay. Like
just like rebuilt it. So it's like very bright. It's actually very beautiful.
Oh,
There's,
awesome.
like, copper and blues and golds everywhere. And everyone, I mean, I love our clinic. The people are lovely. So we were giggling the whole time. We're making like Harry Potter jokes. And it's been lovely because I just absolutely, I trust Becca as our surrogate's name. I trust Becca so much. And like, I always have, when I was going to therapy, when we were like first talking about getting a surrogate, and I remember our therapist asking like, we haven't talked to Becca in so long. Like, what if something intense comes up? Are you going to feel comfortable? And growing up with Becca, I was like, well, we've had intense conversations before. We were just maybe like 15 or 18. So and it has, which has been very nice. But, because we had our transfer, Becca had the transfer a couple months ago, and we had a miscarriage. And that was really difficult because I know how I would deal with that, but I've never dealt with Becca in a miscarriage before. So that I was really following her lead, and I can tell that she was trying to protect me and I was trying to protect her, but we were still being honest, and it was hard. And, we both cried, but
how did you find out? Did she call you? Was she, what?
We were at the clinic. Let me think. Oh yeah, we were at the clinic because she was pregnant. All of her numbers are great. And then we went to the clinic and we did the ultrasound, and they said the number for the heartbeat. And I knew right away because we had a miscarriage before. And I was like, this isn't going to work. And Becca was so sweet. And she's like, well, have you seen a baby bounce back? And the doctor was like, I have, but it's a miracle. And I was like, I don't like the word miracle. Like,
don't do that.
Comfortable. Like,
don't miracle me.
I've held on for too many miracles before. And Becca was still really, she never dealt with infertility, so she didn't know what that was like. And then we went back and there was no heartbeat, and we both cried, but it was really sweet because the doctors had mentioned, they're like, you guys giggle a lot for how
hard this is.
Sorrow is involved. But we're like, it's sad, but we have each other. So it's really comforting. And I have been extremely grateful for like knowing this person, because I can be totally myself. And I mean, I probably would have been totally myself with a stranger anyways, but with us having history, she sits on the chair and we're chatting about her family and telling, how's your dad and things like that. So there's this other element that makes it a lot lighter and more comfortable for me. And we both talk a ton. So we're both just like talk, and then laughing. And that's been, I remember when we left that actually appointment, and I said, if nothing else, like, you being in my life has been really amazing. And I'm super thankful. And she started crying and she's like, I still want to give you a baby. I was like, and so we have one more embryo. And she right away offered and said, we're going to do the next transfer. And I was like, I want you to like give it 24 hours and see how you feel about this.
Go think about it for a while.
Right.
Right.
And within a few hours, she called me back and was like, everyone's on board. We're on board. And I was like, okay. Because we've been very open of like, if there's anything you're not comfortable with, like even when we were making the contracts, I was calling her before I was talking to the lawyer, being like, are you okay with this? Because I don't really know what's happening. And is this okay? So that has been kind of nice because we want to, have her have the best experience possible in this. So.
Right. So what did that feel like after that? So, it seems like it was hard in the office but it was kind of more on the lighter side. And then now, what was the weeks after that?
It hurt like about a week later, which I kind of saw coming because I feel like that's what happened prior to in my first miscarriage, but it was different because there's somebody else's emotions involved.
Right.
But it was a bit harder I think it was a few days after. And my husband has been very like through this whole thing, nope, I'm not excited yet. He is holding his heart in, even though he's like, I don't know if you could tell, but I'm really sad. And I was like, I know you very well.
You're like, yes, we know.
We know you're sad. I know you're sad.
You just don't know you're sad. I know you're sad. You just don't know you're sad.
That's how I would be.
That's like exactly my life.
I want you to know that I'm stressed. Everyone around me, we all know you're stressed.
We all know you're stressed, Doug. Thank you for finally arriving there. Yeah. We are all there.
How did you guys know? I didn't know. How did you know?
And when, there was like a couple nights after and we were in bed and we both started crying of like, man, like we feel like we should get a win in this. Like
Yes.
Totally.
my husband was like, statistically, this is supposed to happen for
Right.
us.
Yeah, right.
Of the science brain of like, my spreadsheet says
Right.
we're
Bring
gonna
back
get a
out the
baby.
spreadsheet. Yeah.
So
Ugh.
it was heavy. I think not having like the body experience changed it a little bit. Maybe it was easier because of that. Maybe it was easier because also I've been through it before and I kind of knew what was going to come up, but there was still another element to it. But I think the heavy communication with Becca has been really helpful of like, okay, how are you feeling? I'm also baking a ton. Like baking is how I've been dealing with my emotions.
I love that. That's a great coping.
Every time I show up to see her, I always have a ton of cookies. And she's like, you bake a lot. I was like, time processing these days.
I love it. I love it. And I feel like too, like that's so interesting that you said like it was almost less painful. It's like, well, when you have a miscarriage, you almost can sometimes blame your body, you know, like, oh, I did something wrong. And that's not necessarily this
it's
case.
not part of it. Yeah. And then on the flip side of that, I was like, Becca, this is not your body. You know?
Right.
She was like, well, I don't know. And it was like, in my brain, your body's like, what are these ingredients? This isn't us.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so the next one will work, right? Because it'll be like, oh, we recognize you. This is how my brain works.
Right. Right. So how do you feel now? Where are you at today? Whatever this date is, September 28th.
It changes.
Okay.
From time, you know, changes all the time. I feel like in the past few days, I'd seen a lot of people that I haven't seen in a long time. So I was like catching up with my story and filling everybody in. It feels hopeful. I had a lot of my brother's friends here. So there was a lot of like men, and one man who we grew up with kept asking me, he's like, I have so many questions, but is it okay if I ask? And I was like, thank you for asking, because I want to talk about, but I haven't seen you in so long. I don't know if you want to talk about like what I'm dealing with. And so sharing that has felt really good. As I've mentioned before, it kind of makes me feel lighter, and I feel like I'm being more honest and authentic. When I show up in a room, people know where I'm coming from, and maybe because I'm not very good at it. I mean, I can be good at a game face. I feel like being a teacher, you had to like put that face on. But for the most part, people know what I'm feeling by my facial expressions, and I'm okay with that.
Right.
So I feel like since I have been open and sharing it a lot, it feels light, and you know, we're not in a waiting period necessarily right now. We have in about 2 months, we're going to pick this back up again. So it feels like there's still a plan for the future. And honestly, after this last miscarriage, I said, are we done? Like, are we done trying? And I had never said that before. And my husband said, you know, I could be happy with the two of us. And I was like, okay, you saying that makes me know that I'm not ready yet, but I just want to explore how that feels. I want to acknowledge that it's on the table. And, you know, I said, I think I would want to look at adoption. And he was like, okay, I would like some boundaries with that. And it was like, absolutely.
Gosh, your guys' communication.
I know.
Who says I just want boundaries in like that's awesome. I love that though. Well, I feel like there's a great quote about putting something on the table means you can take it off. But if you never put it on the table, then it's just this floating ambiguous thing over here.
I love that.
I know. I love that. I love that.
I want to acknowledge that like, okay, this could be a thing.
Right.
And we would still be okay.
Right.
We would maybe be missing something, but we would still be okay.
Right.
And I like, and just having that conversation, I was like, oh, nope, I'm not there. I'm not there. I'm not there. I know that like, I see my boundaries getting farther and farther away. But, and like the other night, like I sat up and was like, oh my God, you know, I think we should create a boundary for this, this, and this. And my husband was like, I think we should maybe wait until we're actually in that position. If it happens, maybe this transfer is going to work. It's like, oh, right. We still have another option. Like that's I think I can get so like future planning of, oh, what's happening, that we forget where we're at right now.
Right.
I think that always it's just hearing your story. One, you're amazing. You and your husband have gone through so much, and you're amazing.
I know you are amazing.
But I think the thing that really sticks out, and the thing that I feel like I've learned even from you, is your ability to really comprehend the reality that you're in that moment. It sounded like it was difficult in the beginning, But then as you went through, it was like, I really need to be here in this. And then just that image of you holding Clementine is just the picture to me of this embracing the reality, you know?
Yes.
And then going forward
like,
throughout all of it, it's really been, I think, inspiring. And what I see is like your anchor, that like your feet are planted where you are.
It's really
you
good
know?
to hear.
Yes, definitely. I feel like my biggest, no, go.
Because it goes like, sometimes I'm not anchored and it floats around, but I know that like I have that anchor and I can use it. Because honestly, sometimes it feels good to like not know and cry and be scared. But I don't want to say feel good, but I feel like I know that I have to acknowledge that, because if I don't want to be where I was before.
Right. Totally. I feel like my biggest takeaway is like how you guys are so on the same page. You and your husband seem like on this, maybe not every single desire is the same or whatever, but it's like you guys very seem on the same page, which is very inspiring. And I feel like hard for some people, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Especially with like this, with infertility. I mean,
Totally.
with anything, I want to acknowledge like any traumatic thing in your life. But
Totally.
I am very lucky that my husband and I are, I mean, I am a bubbly, chatty person. A lot of times he's like, science. But like, we do complement each other in a really nice way.
And that's amazing. You guys are different, but you complement each other.
Oh, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Right.
Very similar to this over here.
I think it's I think it's just it's such a powerful lesson for all of us to learn, is to just be where our feet are planted, you know, be where we are at, you know, whether it's the, first 8 months of figuring out, are we dealing with infertility? Are we not? Be there. Or if you're 2 years into it, be there. And it's so hard to be there. For me, I never wanted to be where I was. I always wanted to be at some destination, and that's always where the problems came from.
That was a big part of why I wanted to start coaching, is like, trying for a family is not usually fun, like for the infertility world.
100%.
Like it can be fun for the people like, oh, I got pregnant very easily. Great for you. It sucks for me, apparently.
Right.
And I wanted to be, I learned that I had to create goals outside of infertility to feel successful, because I had all my ideas were just on fertility. And I needed to be like, there's more to me than just this. Yes, I want to be a mother. Yes, I want this to be my life, but I still need to feel successful. And that's kind of, I started creating goals and I met them. And that's why I became a coach, because it was like, it's so hard to see yourself out of that, especially when, you're trying the herbs, you're going to acupuncture, you're doing the diets. Like, it's hard to like look outside of it.
Yeah.
100%.
And I was tired of feeling unsuccessful. It's like, God, I need a win. And so like one of my first goals was, we bought an old school bus and we turned it into an RV, and we were like, we have a win. Like,
yes. I flippin' love that thing. If we ever
happy about.
Yes. If we ever come up to Chico, that's my first stop.
Absolutely.
Is your bus. That thing is amazing. No, and I think that is such a good point, because I think sometimes also in the infertility world, if we don't have anything outside of our identity besides an infertility, then when you become a mom, that's all your identity.
Right. And I didn't want to do that either.
Right. Exactly. And you can very easily see, that's not to shame anyone. That's just, you can very easily see that can happen. And that's exactly the same with me. And I give advice to people of like, have something else in your life. It doesn't have to be a job, volunteer, don't do whatever, do something. Yes. And I feel that very strongly.
Good to have a win. Like,
yes.
You need wins every now and then, even if they're like, oh, you drive a school bus now, but
totally, which I love.
I love that.
I love that. Love it.
You said that you're a coach. How can people find you?
I'm a goal coach for those specifically dealing with infertility, and we work together to create goals specifically for you. And we meet on Zoom. If you're local, we used to meet locally, but maybe someday we'll do that again.
Yeah.
And you can find me at bloomingwithcare.com, where I also have a blog, but my coaching and things are there. I have some new, fun, exciting ways that are coming out to work with me that won't be necessarily Zoom, that are coming out soon. So pay attention for that.
Awesome.
And I'm always on Instagram at Blooming with Care.
Okay, awesome. And then
love it.
I know you probably kind of said this, but the goals, would that be infertility goals, or that's whole life goals, or both?
Great question. So usually they start out as infertility goals, but as I say, I'm not a doctor, so I can't get or keep you pregnant.
Right.
So usually they have to do with other areas, but as we all know, everything comes back to infertility.
Totally.
Everything comes back to whatever thing you're dealing with. So, like us getting this bus together really brought my husband and I together and felt like we had a win. And after we had that bust, we're like, maybe we can go see a doctor. Like we feel like we are strong enough to do something like that.
Yeah.
But also I work with a lot of women that haven't seen a doctor yet. And we decide like together what should you see a doctor or some ways to look at that. So they can be, but it's in more of a internal way, not necessarily like I can help you get pregnant, because I'm not trying to say that.
Neither are we. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Can't even if I tried.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
You are the freaking best.
You're the flickin' best.
You're the flickin' best.
I mean,
you are.
I felt it.
It was there. So thank you so much for taking the time, taking an hour out of your day to hang out with us and tell us your story.
I was so excited to do this. In fact, I wanted to say that you two are so amazing, and what y'all do is so flickin' cool. That, like, when I was telling my family that this was the thing, I was like, oh my God, you know that box that I got? This is them. These are those people. And so I just think what you do is so amazing. My brother even used your Hello Gorgeous cup this morning because he was like, these are the people, right? I love it. These are the people.
I love that.
Thank you for what y'all do, because it matters. It totally matters.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
That's inspiring for us to hear too. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Those keep us going on those days where you're just like, okay, what are we posting on Instagram today? Man.
Yeah. Infertility it's a crazy world. And me being just like a guy talking about infertility, it's a lot. We want people to feel their feelings, to be in the reality of what they're in, so that they can grow and deal with the grief. But it sometimes feels like an uphill journey, because what we're asking people to do is painful. And I feel like you're an example of someone who really pursued through that pain and found a lot of joy, and is currently finding joy and pain. It's all mixed in together.
They come together. And I think that no matter what life we live, there is pain in life. And like, how are you going to react and respond to that? And that's something that I really like to focus and work on. And also, like, when I work with my clients, I like to know, like, what are their takes on it? Because we all have these beautiful ways of coping that I want to share with people and be like, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Because this is life. We get if we're lucky enough, we get a nice long time here.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this last thing I'll say, this story that I heard just recently about buffalo. I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but out in the plains, like in Texas or something like that, when a storm is coming, cows will run away from the storm. They'll avoid the storm. They'll try to outrun the storm, but they end up dying because they can't outrun the storm. But buffalo actually run into the storm, because they realize if they run into it, they can run through it quicker and more efficient. So they run through the pain, but they actually end up finding the light on the other side. When the cattle on the opposite, they end up.
Gives me chills.
Seriously.
So what I'm trying to say is you're a buffalo.
I will take that. I will absolutely take that.
But that picture of you running towards the storm so that you can actually go through it. You have to go through it no matter what. Yes. But running away from it actually ends up killing you, when running towards it actually saves you.
Oh, that's powerful.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, that's amazing. Okay, we will do this again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
We need a follow-up, and maybe a little while here.
Yes.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Yes.
Of course. Talk to you soon.